So welcome, Denise Duffield-Thomas, to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here as a money mindset mentor and author, and also, dare I say, a good friend. I wanted to get you on the podcast and really explore our human design type. But before we do that, how are you going, my darling? Please introduce yourself and tell everyone, a little more about you who don't already know.
So I'm a money mindset coach and mentor. So I create books and courses around helping entrepreneurs deal with their money gremlins and all their stuff. And you and I met through just the entrepreneurial space, right? When we were first starting out, you had a spare ticket for a conference. I had a spare ticket for a conference. So we're like, let's meet up. And we just fell in love straight away. And you're just one of those people that is so easy to connect with. And you're such a champion. And I just want to say this right off the start too. When we were at our masterminds last week, where, what was there, 10 of us or so, and we're all having our hot seats. And Carrie, one of our friends, she was saying, isn't it lovely to be loved by Victoria?
Oh,
yeah, she said
beautiful.
It's so lovely to be loved by her. During my hot seat, you were looking at anyone who gave me advice, you were looking at them like, dare you give advice to my precious, perfect baby? You're like, no. And it was so beautiful that she mentioned that, because she's just like, you're so fiercely loyal and loving to your clients and your friends. Yes, it is lovely to be loved by you.
Thank you for saying that. And I love being loved by you. And I think there's something about as well, and I know, I've chatted with you about this, but my journey in jumping into new things, and I'm very much, as both of us being a manifestor in human design, which is really kind of like a bit of a human dynamo, right? Like we are here to act, achieve, do the things and kind of ignite others and express ourselves. And it comes very easily, but it also comes with a lot of creative pulls in different directions. It's sometimes referred to as a creative urge, where it'll come in and we'll be cycling through and we'll want to follow it. And it'll be such a deep pull to follow the creative downloads and urges that come through us. And you definitely, and within your design, you've got a lot of creativity within there. It's a big driver for you. And I know you have a lot of creative urges because we've talked about them. But one of the things I admire about you so much is your commitment and devotion to following through with especially this iteration of your business. And I know that you've had other iterations of business. So tell me about staying on track as a manifestor, particularly in business, because it's something I haven't been able to achieve. And it's something I've seen you really do amazingly well. Particularly the word devotion comes to mind in many ways over the years. So can you just kind of give us a bit of insight, because it's not going to be your natural desire to do it, right?
But when you say I'm a good follow through person, I'm actually not, except I can do it and then I have to forget about it. And so a really good example of that is like my money boot camp, right? Which I've been doing since 2012. Is that right? Yeah. So how many years is that now? It's like 13 years, right? So a lot of people go, how can you have that discipline to keep doing that? But I actually don't have to have the discipline. I just have to not break it. And so I think in those early years, maybe the first 3 years, I redesigned it every year and I launched it a lot. But then after that, I only re-recorded it every 2 years, and I pretty much do the same recording. I do the same transcripts. I just tweak them a little bit. So I actually treat myself like an alcoholic in a way. So if I do have a creative urge, sometimes if it's something that I can do, I'll do it. But a lot of times the creative urge for people comes in destroying something first. So I'm like, I can destroy it tomorrow, but just not today, which is very much an alcoholic thing. And I don't mean to sound trite in that or offensive, but I think sometimes with that manifestor personality, it can be a workaholic energy.
Totally.
And an addiction to new and all that kind of stuff. And so I still have it. I just say to myself, you can do it tomorrow. And then the urge passes and I don't do
which
it.
Of course it does. It is that shiny object, I'll go over here. Or sometimes to me, it just feels like such a compulsion. Like I can't go back. And then I'm like, I can't have that anymore. And I know that is been such a costly drain in many ways, but not to my creative spirit, right? Not to my essence and my learning, but in terms of a business strategic focus, it can be such a detriment. So that's why I wanted to ask you about that. And I have been able to see that even in your chart too, in certain channels. And there is particularly with one, I won't go into all the detail because we're going to rabbit hole, but there's actually like quite a strong discipline element in there. And when I was looking at it, I was like, it's so interesting to me because I remember when we went on a retreat. Do you remember when we went to Dalesford for Julie Parker and Saura Schilling's retreat, which was amazing. I loved it. And I love it when we go on retreat because we always generally share a bedroom or even sometimes a bed when there hasn't been.
Yes.
And we have full slumber parties and I love it. But I remember when Julie Parker we were doing the archetypes of women where you go from like the maiden to the crone. I'm into my, what is it, queen and then crone. I'm hoping that I can stay in the queen for a bit longer, but I'm also excited about the crone being that wise woman, just not some of the other elements, but that's fine. And we were talking about the different archetypes, even in business or like our style. And you had the nun. And I was like, oh, the nun, Denise, you're so like stitched up. And it was about devotion and discipline. And I was so like, that stayed with me for such a long time in me having the beautiful gift of witnessing your journey in this current iteration of business for those 13 years, right? And we met 14 years ago. So it's actually, I knew you pre-kids. I knew you pre, the author, the following that you have now, all of that. So I've been able to see that evolution from you going from the maiden to the mother, really, like in that archetype. But that nun archetype just really stayed with me because it was one that I went, even though that doesn't naturally come to me, how could I cultivate it within me? Not going against my design, but in order to serve me. And I think that I found that inspiring because normally I would have gone, that's just not me and I'm not going to do that. It's kind of like I used to say, I can't cook, so I'm not going to cook. I just don't cook. But in learning it and trying it, then I'm like, I really like cooking. So, you can borrow and try those on. I can't remember the one I had. I had one that was like almost like the sexy woman. You had the nun and I had this like the sexy woman. And I was like, not that I'm saying you're not sexy, but like what I mean, right?
I remember we've been at conferences and it's like, I'll go to the conference at night and then you go out at night and then you just crawl in at 3 a.m. and it's like, hi, but that's so beautiful because then we can download. I can be like, oh, this is what happened in the 9 a.m. session. You can be like, oh, I met the speaker at the bar last night at 1 a.m. and here's an opportunity for you. And I think that is a really beautiful like juxtaposition, I think. But I've completely forgot about the nun thing. I actually think it's almost, I think it's that solitude thing of, I don't feel like I need a lot of interaction with people. So I don't need that necessarily from my business. And so I think having somewhere to put people to be like, go into my money bootcamp, I've created this space for you, has been like great for me from a business point of view. But also it's like, but I'm like, maybe it's that hermit thing too, right? That's in it's like, I'm just doing my own thing over here. But if you want something from me, you have to go there. And I often say that about bootcamp. I'm like, it's this or nothing because I don't have anything else to give you at the moment, literally, energetically, anything, because I've got, I've got kids to deal with or whatever. And it's been really useful also to separate myself energetically from the business, because I can go, my energy is in there, my course that I've created, but it doesn't need me to like, I don't know, be the guide all the time personally for people. That's been super helpful for me.
Yeah.
As well.
And I think even like it's such a big part of being a manifestor is this lone wolf kind of element, right? We have this independent drive and a drive to do things alone and to move with that. It doesn't mean we don't want to be with people, but there is that very strong element of independence. And when we're able to do things so quickly and ignite things and wonder why like others can't go as fast and make it happen, there is a tendency to go alone. But what I love about all of those elements really speak to being a manifestor that you just mentioned, in terms of I've got something that I don't have to give my energy to, we don't have generative energy. So we only have a finite amount, and it is used to get others started and to inspire their transformation, which is perfect for you as well. But we don't necessarily have the energy to be showing up and giving that, all that commitment every single day in our physical presence. And so this has been like, I hope people really take that away, because that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from you and watching it is like, wow, you could create a container and you could just have some of those elements that don't require full depletion, but you're building and building rather than going to a new urge. Like I remember even very early on, it probably was 2013, you wrote your book, the first book, Lucky Bitch. And if people haven't got Denise's books, people always tell me how much they love your books, and I love them too. So there's 3, there's Lucky Bitch, there's Get Rich Lucky Bitch, and there's Chillpreneur. There's not another one that
which has been, Chillpreneur got renamed Chill and Prosper, actually. I think this is a really cool manifesting story too, because when I self-published my books, and I didn't really care that much about traditional publishing, but it was kind of a little bit of an urge. But I got an email from a Hay House lady who is just on my newsletter list, right? And this is just always such a good lesson. You never know who's watching. And I was like sending my newsletter out every week. So she contacted me and said, look, I really love your stuff. I'd love to pitch you to my bosses at Hay House. And we went through the whole process, and she was like, look, they're a no at this time. And so this is when my business was called Lucky Bitch as well. And I was just like, it's just not Hay Housey, and I went, that's fine. I said, oh my God, because even going through this process has been so great. But now I'm going to go away and build something that you can't say no to next time. So then we changed my whole company name. So that's when I went to Denise DT. Also, my ads and stuff were starting to get disapproved because Facebook didn't like the word bitch. Like, it was just starting to become a bit of a problem. But I went away and built all of my social media numbers. And then I went back to them and said, hey, look, I've got an idea for a new book called Chillpreneur, and you can have the other books essentially for free and like as a package deal. And they went, yeah, great. And so we went through the process, and I hated the cover.
Yeah,
I hated it. You remember the first cover of it? And I was like, I hate it. And it was because I was a new author with them. I was trying to push back that feeling like, oh, I can't really do it. So I just said, you know what, universe, like, I'm just leaving it up to you. I'm like, I'm just going to let it go. Right. And then 2 years later, they were like, oh, Denise, we'd love to do a new version of the book because it's, pandemic. Like, we want to be able to mention that. We want more case studies. And I said, great. Like, we really need to change the cover. And they went, great, but let's change the name as well, because they never really liked Chillpreneur. And so I was like, totally fine. But it was just such a thing of like going, I know it's going to happen. Like, just, that manifestor trust sometimes you have. You just go, okay, fine, I've got other things to worry about. Like, we don't fixate on stuff. But I was just like, fine, whatever. And so then I love the cover. Chill and Prosper, I had already called my podcast that name. So I was like, done.
Marketer, I'm like, brilliant. That couldn't have been a bigger gift to align with your podcast anyway. And I remember even waiting in the wings before you did a podcast going, I wish she'd hurry up and do a podcast, because when she does, it is going to be huge, because people think you had that beautiful energy, which is difficult for a manifestor to have as well, because we have what they sometimes call a closed and repelling aura, and not everyone is open to our transformation and our ignition and our informing, right? So it's interesting. I've loved watching the way people come in, and I think it's because you have always had those clear boundaries. It's like, you can go over here and you're not going to get all of me, even when I want to kind of like cross your boundaries. Like, not that I would do it, but you know me, I'd like get up in people's stuff and I'd say things to you, or like, I remember one day I asked you a question, you're like, well, you could just go and Google that, and I'd be like, yeah, I actually could.
That's so rude.
No. It was late. Like, it was late at night, and I came in. I was probably like had a few drinks. I was like, oh, about this, but me, stream of consciousness, just talking, blah blah blah.
3 a.m.
And you would, at 3 a.m. And you,
I do remember that actually.
Yes, and you were
going to Google it, Victoria. It's 3 a.m.
Google it, lady. I love that. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, what I was going to say is, the way that I do the podcast, I think is probably a manifestor thing, right? So I batch it very intensely. So I'll hire a studio, because otherwise I will not do it at home. There'll be a million things that will distract me. So I hire a studio for someone. I just need to sit there and talk. And I usually do 12 in a day. So I only have to do that 4 times a year. And that is, again, it means I have to make sure that my podcasts, like, they're not super topical. They have to be, stuff that I can pull out at any time. Obviously I can look ahead and go, oh, well, I can do a Christmas episode, I can do whatever, but I try and make them kind of evergreen. And also I think the lesson that I've learned too is it's okay to be repetitive with stuff, because people need to hear it again and again. And I'm not always trying to reach the people who have been following me forever and, done all my things. It's like, it's always trying to get the new person. So I think, I don't know if that's a manifesty thing of just going, here's the thing, here's the constraint, and then I don't want to think about it until next quarter.
Absolutely. And I know my human design teacher had said to me as well, he goes, the perfect kind of business for you is to come in and out. So you're not designed to be there the whole time, and you will start to get, like, our not self theme is that anger, right? And I used to think, I don't think I really get angry. And then I thought about my parenting.
Yeah.
Angry, my children would make me when they were small. And Millie, I've got 2 kids that you know them very well. And Millie, in fact, has your birthday in your same human design life theme, even though she's a projector, so very different. But, she said to me last night, I remember when you were just screaming at me one day saying, I can't remember the word. It was something like, it wasn't even frustrate. It was the next level of like, you just make me so like mad. I don't think I said angry or mad. It was something like, I just cannot believe how frustrating you are. And she goes, I'll never forget just looking at your face. Like, you were just so like distraught. And I was like, because I just couldn't get through to you. And it was so like, I was so annoyed. So then I realized anger comes in. But yeah, that having to show up not on our terms, I think can be very difficult. So that batching that you just mentioned, which everyone always admires when you say, it's such a manifestor thing too. Like, you go, I just like did 50 podcasts in 2 weeks or whatever you say, and people are like, oh my God, like, and you do, because it's beautiful. So
like,
that's
I want the container, I want to be on, I get my hair and makeup done. I'm like, so even today, right, I was like, I had 2 gaps. Normally I do 5 in a row, and Mark, my husband, had put in the orthodontics appointment. It should just be an FYI, but he's blocked it out in my calendar. So then I said to our mastermind group, hey, I've got 2 slots tomorrow, because I don't want to just sit here and be like, what am I going to do with my life for 2 hours waiting for my next podcast? So it's like, I just want to be very contained with stuff like that. So I have freedom then during my week, because I find it so difficult. Like when Mark came into the business, he's a projector, but he needed to have all these touch points with me to be like, and he still does it, where he's like, so we're doing our SMA launch. Like, are we going to have the clothes on the thing? What? And I'm like, I've had this conversation once. I never want to have it again. Why are we having this conversation? It's so boring to go over old ground. But if I can do it where it's just like, okay, I'm there, I'll do my thing, and then I don't have to think about that. It's the only way I can do the business. And I think that's why it's been so good with having the same business, because I'm like, I don't need to, like, that's done, like I don't have to have that question mark in my mind. What's my next course? When am I going to launch it? That's why I also made my course evergreen. So then we can still do launches, which Mark pretty much takes care of now. But we can serve those people who are instant gratification people. And it's just like, cool, I've got somewhere to send you. When he came in the business, he was like, oh, you could do a mastermind, we could do all these things. And I was like, I don't want to. I just don't want to. And I don't think I can if I don't want to. It doesn't matter how much money something like that would make. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah. And I think for you as well, Lane, I've always been, in admiration of it, but also like envious of having you put in place those kind of like I think Kerry was talking last week about having guardrails on things. And I thought that was such a good term to use, in having guardrails in your business, where even when I started my mastermind, right, in 2013, and you'd come on the retreats and coach, I mean, how lucky were those women to like have us first start, but also like have that opportunity. It was amazing. And then we could catch up. It was great.
It was fun.
They were the best of times. But in terms of that, like it's kind of like you said to me, oh, well, you can have that person, they can join your mastermind, when you had been coaching, and you just put a line in the sand, said, I'm not doing coaching with clients anymore one-on-one. Like, it's just not going to happen. And you could have had, can you imagine how many people would have kept wanting that? And for you not to have put that guardrail in, you would have been blocked in starting this scale. Not that you were like, I'm going to scale and take over the world, but you just put those guardrails in and really believed in that direction. And once again, that discipline and devotion of staying there despite wanting to be pulled off course, whether it be by Mark or, you know, a million other ideas. And even the good thing was, I remember also you saying when you'd have some other creative urges, like doing the branded like merch and products. And I mean, you did have decks, and I mean, you'd always, what about the jumpsuit with the bees on it? I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. Like, there's definitely bits where, I mean, I still get distracted a little bit, but I just don't break that core thing. On the one-to-one thing, it'd be really interesting to see if this is in my chart too, because I did like one-to-one, but I maxed out. Like, I remember the most I ever had in a week was like 15 clients. I actually think I maxed out at about 5, because any more than that, I was like, I can't remember the details between clients. Like, I can't remember. I couldn't hold all of that. And so, and also I feel like I'm not that good at it. So occasionally someone will go, oh, you know, can you please do one-to-one? And I was like, look, I would take your money, but I'm not good at it. Like, it's not, I'd prefer to speak rather than listen. And like, not good at it. So it would be a waste of your money. And so that's why, you know, boot camp's great. But even when I do my money archetypes, I only do it once a year. It's, you know, a set time, and I can give myself to it for that time. But apart from that, it's not my skill set, you know?
Yeah. And it's so interesting you say that about the speaking, because as manifestors, that's where all the manifestation takes place, in our throat, right? So the expression of ourselves, that's how we create. So when we're talking as a manifestor, it's about creation, and that drive we've got a motor directly to the throat. So that is what has to come through. And I know when I studied life coaching, and they're like, you have to hold the space. You can't put your judgment. You can't put your opinion. And I'd be sitting there going, my brain is broken. I don't know what you mean about that. I think that's very true. We are more suited to having that group to express ourselves to, because we ain't going to hold that.
We can't hold it back, right? And I've seen you in action with that, where you're just like, well, here's the strategy. Like, you're not going to be like, well, what do you think? Because you're like, I've got the information that I can just give you. I can just tell you. You don't have to figure it out. It's hard.
And it is hard. And it's so funny, because in learning those principles, I was like, oh, yeah, maybe that's what I need to do more. And I still try and do that now to this day, where I say, well, what do you think? Or what, or ask those coaching questions, right? And in my head, I'm just like, I've got the answer, just take it and go. You'll make $1 million and like go and have fun, right? Like, but I have to go, no, okay. But as soon as I do, then I see, because it's not my natural style, it's not my design. People get like actually really kind of, well, can't you just tell me? Like, they get very frustrated with me. So then I'm like, well, I'll just tell them now. I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. And so your profile type being a 3-5, it's quite a common profile type, but the biggest hallmark of it is a lot of trial and error, giving things a go, but just recovery straight back. Like, oh, I ran over here, fell off a cliff, I'm back again. Can you talk to parts of your life, and it might be in business particularly, I guess, would be interesting just to think about some of those recovery mechanisms, or an experience you can think of when I say that comes to mind that would be a hallmark of being a 3-5?
Well, I think when I have made mistakes, I do feel like, oh my God, this is going to be so great for the podcast. Like, this is going to be such a great chapter for a book. And so I see the juice in things very, very quickly. And I think when I was one-to-one coaching too, I had to slow that down a bit, because people would be like, here's a bad thing happened. I'd be like, this is amazing. Like, this would be so great to share, but they were still in it. So it was hard sometimes to then be like, oh no, that is really bad. Sorry. But it's really good. So even as a friend, if someone's getting divorced, I'm like, already can see like 5 years down the track, I'm like, this is amazing. But people need to wallow in it a little bit and get that sympathy. So I think I've just always had that for myself and others. Also, I don't know if this is just ADHD, but I totally forget about things. So I was speaking in London, and so I was doing a keynote, and there was like a really drunk guy who stood up and like he heckled and he had to be removed, whatever. Like, he was super drunk, right? And this was in England. So a lot of people were just like mortified by it. I get to the end of my keynote. I just like recovered and went, whatever. And I get to the end of the keynote. I was meeting people after, and they were like, are you okay? And I was like, about what? I've just forgotten about it. Like, it just didn't penetrate at all. I also think from an early age because I was a performer. So I started dancing at 8, and the dance school I went to, we were not the best, but we danced bloody everywhere. So my dance teacher, Simone, love her, Simone School of Performing Arts, she literally would be like, we would dance at Mick Happy Day. We would dance at old folks' homes. We're always dancing at the local shopping center, like anywhere we danced, right? And so I feel like, especially in the early years when we were still kind of getting better, we had so many disasters. And so like our music would be the wrong music. Our music would be sped up. We would be dancing on the back of a flatbed truck and it would start to bounce. We would be on a really slippery floor and half of us would fall over. We would be like, just so many embarrassing, humiliating things happened in those early days that we were just kind of like, whatever. And I see that now because I do perform again now. And I see people are so nervous and I'm like, oh, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I feel like it's happened already. Also, the other thing I think that helps with that is that, my mum. My mum is like so undiagnosed ADHD. We just had such a kind of chaotic sometimes childhood, but also just like she does just try lots of things and nothing was ever a big deal. And I think that now I'm only appreciating that now. I think I didn't appreciate it for a long time, where I'm like, she'll just walk away from stuff like and not be bothered. Yeah. And she's just like, well, okay, what's the next new thing? And of course, that was very painful sometimes as a kid. Now I'm like, oh, that's such a great skill just to go, well, that happened. And then like, great, I can talk to other people about it. Yes. Like then it doesn't make it as embarrassing, I think, too.
Yeah, I think actually that brings up something I wanted to talk to you about, because I was thinking about, I mentioned this last week to you, how Denise and I would host retreats together, but we would also bring in our third Manifestor friend. I mean, I really thought about it. There's not many Manifestor entrepreneur friends I have, and Denise and Jody are two of them, right? And they were my closest entrepreneur friends. And it's so funny that you're Manifestors, because we just have that recognition, even though we didn't know it. But we've all got different elements in it. But one of the things I was thinking about with Jody and the distinction, because I love actually now with the knowledge of human design, looking at the difference between us all as manifestors. But one of the things that I was thinking of that was different was that Jody grew up in a family of brothers, and her dad was very much part of the family. Mum, dad, very nuclear family. And no families are perfect, and I'm sure she's not going to say hers was, but it was a really strong family unit. And there were certain things that I think Jody expects, because her dad would always be like, okay, Jody, she's the girl, and here's the things that happen. And not that Jody expects certain things, but I think you and I growing up with single mothers as manifestors, where we're free, we're left kind of free to do a lot of our own things. And I think that's such a gift if you do have a manifestor child, which I know a lot of people do now because of sort of the way the world's changing. A lot of manifestors are being born, which yay. Which is kind of cool. So if you speak to more people, so many more women are like, my baby's a manifestor. And you're like, yes, I know, because that's kind of the way the world is moving
they need to be,
I know, right? Exactly. So, but what I was going to say to that was that there's something as well about that being driven to succeed. Yes, we've got the manifestor element, but I think growing up with a single mother, obviously economically, that is not an abundant place to be for most people, right? So talk to that for me, like, in terms of that being a driver. It can also be a hindrance, I understand, but in seeing that kind of like sheer, I've got to get this because I've got to provide for myself. Like, tell me about that.
I think that started really early because I saw my mom either struggle with money or be in situations like with relationships where, she didn't have economic power. So when I was 11, she married someone who was much older, wealthy, controlling, and they were together for about 6 years, but I think we moved in and out of his big house about 5, 6 times, probably even more. Like we'd come home and she'd be like, okay, we're moving somewhere else. And I think I realized too, I was like, I never want to be in that situation where a man can kick me out or choose how I spend my life. And also I was very aware about like, I really loved dancing and I just wanted to dance all the time. I was very aware that that was both an expense, but it was also a way that my stepdad could control me. Because he'd be like, well, I'm not going to pay for your dancing, or I'm not going to pay for this. So when I was 12, I asked my dance teacher if I could be her, like do assistant teaching for her. like helping with the, you know, babies ballet and stuff like that. So that paid for some of my lessons. And then as soon as I could, I got a job. And even like at university and in my 20s, I always had like 5 jobs, you know, and like one of them was an adult chat line, which I've talked about before. And the reason why I picked that is because it was open 24/7. And so if I needed money, I could just be like, oh, can I come in for a shift? Could I come in for a double and do like 12-hour shift, like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., which was hilarious.
I love your chat line stories. Is the best.
And I was like, when people go, oh, university was so fun, I go, I was always working. And then even in my 20s in London, I did the same thing. I was always working and I always had all these side hustles. And I even, I participated in a medical experiment in the UK to pay for my tuition. And I remember a friend at the time, she was like, oh, you'd do anything for money, wouldn't you? And I remember thinking, I have to. No one is going to take care of me. There's no way for me to get that money to, you know, do my university tuition if not for this. Half of it was like 10 grand. I remember half of it came from the medical experiment and half of it came in a bank error in my favor. So I was like, that's, I think, when things started to shift for me into being lucky. Like that's when the lucky bitch thing happened, because then things were coming to me, not necessarily through just hard work and hustle, but actually like the universe was kind of nudging me in a different direction. So I set an intention to write a book and I won the door prize at Sandy Forster's event, which was a self-publishing course. I wanted to be a life coach, and a friend texted me. She goes, you know, you won a life coaching thing on a webinar I was on yesterday. And I was like, I don't even remember like signing up for the webinar. And she was like, yeah, and you won the door prize, which was a life coaching qualification thing. And then, you know, all these things were happening, and it really shifted then of going like, you're a really hard worker and you'll do whatever it takes, to think, oh, maybe you don't have to try as hard. You can direct your intention. And it was just a really different shift for me.
I love that. That almost gives me goosebumps. Just the thought of it, it wasn't also just landing on you. You were igniting it in terms of, right, I have to create these elements, like, and you always talk to that entrepreneurial drive, but there was also a deeper pull within you emotionally about that, to feel that safety, I believe, as well, of that. Yes, I can be creative. Yes, I can have that. But it's like, and also very Manifestor thing of nobody's going to control me. And I feel like that very much drove me to being a mother of a single mother too, where she'd be like, you know, well, your father's not giving us any money. So, and I never wanted to rely on a man for my choices or my freedoms like that. And I still don't. And I might be why I'm divorced, because when I married someone who wanted to control how money was spent, even though both of us were making it, that was just a hard no for me. Like, and he wasn't even like financially, it wasn't anything bad, but it was just like, even that little bit of control, I was like, no way, I get to decide these things. And that's sovereign to me. So I love that you shared that. And I know we're at time, so we've got to wrap up. But in talking to that one thing about, like, you have always had that message from the beginning about that luck, which, you know, there was definitely luck there, but it was kind of strategic luck in many ways, right? And that force of who you are. But in talking to that, you know, determination or seeing that opportunity, like, is there just something you'd like to share with other women? I know they always ask you, women in business who see your success and they want to emulate it. And this is part of my drive to say to people, you can do it on your terms and do it differently. Maybe just leave us with that one thing you think you have done differently that has worked really well and really given you that leverage, maybe that maybe you haven't even talked about before, or there's something that...
Well, I always think of my grandmother, right? So my grandmother died when I was 25 and I was really close to her, but I think even more than my mum, she really would drum into me, you know, like, don't ever be dependent. She'd always say to me from a young age, she'd be like, I hope your grandfather dies this year. And I was like, when she started telling me that, they were like in their 50s, they weren't old, but she just didn't have any other avenue. But one of the last times I spent with her before she died, because she was, you know, she had breast cancer and all that kind of stuff. We did a road trip up to Queensland, and I was like really starting my personal development journey, and I was listening to like Zig Ziglar or like Amway tapes or something. And we just kind of drove in silence, and it was like a couple of hours in and she was like, you could do this. And I just sort of went, oh, really? And I thought, she never got to see any, like literally nothing, because she died when I was 25. So I was still in my like, trying things out phase. But I think she did see that in me. Yeah. And so she has visited me at very like important parts of my life. So I've smelt her perfume, like when I was giving birth to Willow, and also other times I've been in hospital. And I remember I was saying, I can smell my nan. And like, the midwives are kind of like, okay, whatever. I was like, oh my God, she's here. And it was really, really special, because I'm like, she was so smart. She was so creative. She was a dressmaker. She did all these cool things. She was very funny as well. But she just lived in a time where she couldn't do anything. With that creativity. She could have had an amazing Etsy store or a YouTube channel or whatever, right? And so every time I think, oh, look at me, I'm so smart, I go, no, it's literally just the era that I'm in. And so I think about my grandma, and I always do think, like, imagine saying to your grandma, like, oh, I would start my podcast, but what if someone's mean to me on the internet? They couldn't do what we can do. And like, I even think she started Nutrimetics. She was selling Nutrimetics for a while.
Love it.
Like in Pacific Palms in Foster, where there was probably like 100 people around her, right? And I just think, oh my God, like we're able to have all these beautiful friendships with people all around the world who are like-minded. We get all this beautiful support. We can create a bloody podcast. We can make things with our imagination. I feel so privileged with that. And I think that's what keeps me going, because I go, nobody can stop us from doing this, but nobody can make us either. So we do have to be internally driven to go, why not me? I'm allowed to write a book. I'm allowed to create a podcast. No one is sitting there waiting for it and begging for it. So you just have to be a bit delusional and just go, okay, I'm going to do it, because my grandmother she would have done it.
Absolutely. And can I leave that, and we'll wrap up with this one thing, that in your human design, in your unconscious is your ancestry, right? And there's certain planetary activations that are your maternal grandmother. So I'm going to look into what that is for you and share it, because that will be, you're carrying her. She's within you.
Really quick story on this. So I went to a yoga retreat, and sometimes in yoga spaces, I feel like I'm the like business bitch. And everyone was talking about like, what's your spirit animal and all this kind of stuff. And I went, I don't have one, I'm a bitch. And so I had this session with someone, and she goes, yours is a dragon. She's like, you're fire. And she's like, that is an animal. And it's really important for those lightning strikes in the ground that is like, brings something into the soil. And she's like, it's really important to be that fire energy. Because I was like, oh, everyone's like is a unicorn and stuff like that, so mine doesn't exist. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to embrace that dragon energy. I came home, and my auntie, who long ago divorced my uncle, met with me for coffee. She goes, oh, I've got a present for you. I went and visited your uncle, my ex-husband, and while he was in the toilet, I like rummaged in his cupboard of all your grandmother's things that he has. And it's a dragon.
Get out.
Yes.
Go get it.
It's right here.
Show me. I know what you like.
I was always like, oh, my grandmother was so like soft and kind, and like she loved traveling. And so she got this in the 80s from, I think she was in China or Japan. She loved traveling. And it was she just thought, I just grabbed the first thing, and I wanted you to have something because I don't have anything from her. And it was just the perfect thing of going, I am allowed to be the dragon. It's that is who I am. And so Dragon Lady, isn't that so cool?
I love that. And I love the way you put things together decor wise as well. I just love it, because you could just put that, and anyone else, it's just going to look ugly. Even like your Fortuna statues, which I know you always have, and you've given me one, but that one I can see it up there as well. And I always love it, because I'm always like, my mum bought me a blue typewriter when I was 9, so it's not quite like that. And there's like a little bee here, crystals and stuff. So you and beautiful, and I love that.
And then my dragon sits on there too.
I love that story, and I actually really want to do Vicky, your mum's design too. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, I so want to do Vicky. I love your mother. But anyway, we could go on forever, but we've got to wrap it up and just leave everyone hopefully with those thoughts. Particularly, hopefully, this has given some comfort to manifestors out there. I know that human design has given me so much comfort and permission to be the way we are wired to be. So it's interesting to hear those different experiences, and I have learnt new things just doing this. Can we do it again, please? Or just have a chat?
Yes,
we don't even have to talk, but
absolutely.
we should just record all our chats. It sort of makes them even
Exactly.
better, right? So let's do it. So thank you, my darling. I cannot wait to see you again soon. Yeah, let's just share and go and take our grandmothers and our mothers' energy for all their, you know, light and shade. It's in us, and this is our privilege to take that and ignite it out there as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Oh,